So Mark, what paranormal belief did you have as a kid that probably followed you into adulthood somewhat, and how did you get rid of it?
Well, I always wanted, it wasn't really a belief, but I always wanted to be able to fly. So levitation, that's one of the reasons I got into magic, is because I saw these posters of magicians making people float in the air, and I always wanted to be like Superman and fly in the air like a bird. I always used to dream about it, and I thought maybe there was a way to do it when I was a little kid. That's really the first thing I remember when I was 5 or 6 years old. My grandmother made me a Superman suit, and I used to jump around the living room from couch to couch trying to fly. I really thought I could do it. So I guess that would be classed as paranormal, wouldn't it?
Well, did it follow you into adulthood?
Yeah, I became a magician. I levitated my dog. I really got into levitation. It was all the different ways of doing it, and making people believe you could do it, and special effects and all of that. So yeah, it followed me into adulthood. But I haven't been able to really, I never learned how to fly an airplane or anything, so maybe I can, and I've never sky jumped or skydived. That's probably something I'm gonna do someday. It's on my bucket list.
So Charles, what is your paranormal belief that you had as a child, and kind of that maybe followed you into adulthood, and how you got out of it?
Well, as I was raised Catholic, first of all. I come from a family of all Catholic people. Probably around college, I just started kind of learning more about the world as it is, and there's no evidence for certain things like ghosts or gods, what have you, and it gradually kind of left, Yeah.
Did you have
I guess, everybody really kind of starts out with that invisible, if they're raised Christian or Catholic, they have the invisible friend in their head, which is, God or Jesus or whatever. And I definitely believe that. I used to. It just, anytime I have that kind of conscience voice in my head, I just know it's coming from me. I don't think it's anywhere else but coming from inside. So, yeah, I guess that's my woo belief that I used to hold. And of course I guess to a lesser extent, I believed that ghosts were real, just because it was a fun thing to believe. But yes, I was more adamant about defending the existence of a god back then, because that's kind of ingrained through the being raised as a religious person. But yeah, the ghost was just kind of a fun thing that I wanted to believe, and eventually I got out of that because, never really encountered them.
Cool. So Sandra, what was your paranormal belief that you had as a child that you followed you into adulthood and you kind of got rid of?
Well, I never had a paranormal belief as a child. However, I had a very interesting experience when I was about 5 or 6 years old. I had a neighbor who was the same age as I was, and I told her that Santa Claus didn't exist. And she, in turn, picked up a rake, not the kind that you rake leaves with, but that really hard tine that you can really scratch the earth with, and hit me over the head and cracked my skull. So that was my experience with people who were believers versus me, who was a non-believer.
Oh my gosh. Did you have to go to the hospital?
I did.
Oh my gosh. No stitches, did you?
Yes.
How many?
I can't remember. I was a little kid.
Oh my gosh. Do you still see that neighbor?
No.
She's not a friend on Facebook, huh?
No. Definitely
Okay,
not.
Jim. So what was your belief?
Where's my eye line? Is it you or camera?
Camera.
Okay. I, as a child, was obsessed with the Loch Ness Monster. And I really wanted to believe it, read every book available on it, and all the books, anyone who writes a book about the Loch Ness Monster, especially in the 1970s, was writing about how real it is. So I read everything that was available about the Loch Ness Monster and really wanted to believe it and loved dinosaurs, of course. And then there were no more books on the Loch Ness Monster. So I started reading about Scotland and then about the United Kingdom and then about Europe, and it sort of made me into a history buff and someone who was interested in that type of thing. And I went to Scotland when I was 11 and went to Loch Ness and saw nothing. That didn't necessarily shake my faith, but just, it sort of faded away over the course of really there's nothing new, still no one has found anything. But it still left me with this legacy of knowing a lot about Europe, a lot about history, and that and Dracula. I knew Dracula wasn't real, but reading about both the Loch Ness Monster and Dracula, Eastern Europe and Western Europe, and they sort of like met in the middle.
Did you start reading skeptical literature when you kind of ran out of you said they stopped kind of...
No, I mean,
never really found
I don't
anything?
recall, because no one writes a book about the Loch Ness Monster as fake. It's... If you're writing a book about the Loch Ness Monster, you're writing about how cool it is and how real it is.
Right. Well, now there is.
Now there is, but this was,
10 years ago.
30, 40 years ago, when I was doing this. So at that point, especially for, a grade schooler, there wasn't a lot of skeptical literature about the Loch Ness Monster.
All right. Well, thank you.
All right.
So, hi, Susan. Tell us what your story is about how you first got into the paranormal and what you decided that followed you into your later life.
Well, I was raised Southern Baptist, so we believed in God and that kind of thing, but I never really bought into it, so I can't really say that I had... That's paranormal to me, all the beliefs we were supposed to have, but I didn't believe it. I was I had a lot of problem with Cain and Abel and the Tower of Babel. Oh, that really bothered me a lot. Noah's Ark, and I didn't like how they would skip stories and then spend a lot of time talking about the same stories over and over in the New Testament. So I had a lot of problem with that, a lot of questions. So I never really believed in that paranormal kind of thing. I guess in high school, it's not when I was a little kid, but I was kind of a late bloomer. In high school, I believed in astrology, but not the kind of astrology that was like it would predict your future, but more the kind of astrology that was sun signs. I was really into Linda Goodman's sun signs book. And thinking about it now, I'm not really sure if I had because I always thought that I fit the profile of a Leo. I was a Leo with a Scorpio moon and a Scorpion rising sun. I think that's what it was, but I was really into it. And I fit all the characteristics of that type of personality. And I don't know if I kind of developed my personality based on those things, thinking that's what I was going to be like. So I developed the confidence and the leadership and all those kinds of attributes because of what I knew, or if that was my natural tendency to be that way. I don't really know, but I got out of it just out of high school, I think, because I didn't really feel that there was... it was really kind of silly. And there's just 12 sun signs. How could there be just 12 different personality types? And sometimes people blended into other personality types. And I'm not sure if there was an aha moment, but I just kind of just said, this is really dumb that I'm believing all this into one book. And I think that's kind of how it faded. But as far as paranormal beliefs, I think that's probably the only ones I really had that carried over into my adulthood to some extent.